The sixth great extinction. I'd say we're certainly heading in that general direction. There's a lot of biodiversity problems that we're facing just right now. And the basic problem is that humans and their livestock have overrun the planet. If you look at the megafauna biomass, that's the way I sort of start talking to people about biodiversity, just in the big animals, the animals that we can see. We can see a cow. Most humans on the planet weigh more than 100 pounds. And that qualifies them as large animals and therefore megafauna. Now, we're actually at the lower end of the scale in terms of megafauna. Elephants are bigger, deer are bigger, antelope are bigger. All these other animals are bigger. But most of the megafauna on the planet is livestock. About 2/3 of all the megafauna on the planet are livestock animals, and the other third is mostly humans. And so that leaves just less than 5% for all the truly wild animals, the animals that you and I would think of as wild, like, giraffes, bears, lions, tigers, elephants, and so forth. All of these kinds of animals, less than 5%. And it's shrinking. Elephants dropped by 90%, elephant biomass, that is, dropped by 90% just in the 20th century, and it's continuing to decline. So we have to ask, what's going to happen to all these animals, and what's going to happen to us? Because these extinctions have a funny way of working their way back up to us. It's not just large animals that are in danger of going extinct. It's also the small animals. Snails are endangered. Insects. There's been a huge decline in insects throughout the world. They've gone into the rainforest and done some studies, and they compared the number of insects now with the insects in the 1970s or 80s or so. And they found that there's been some serious, substantial declines, 50, 80% or more in certain areas. When I was a kid, I would go to, we would go to Florida for a vacation. And my parents would take us kids on vacation. And we would drive down there. We lived in Tennessee at the time. We would drive down there, and every time we stopped for gas, Dad would get out, or if the service person didn't get it, he would have to get out and scrape the insects off the car, because the insects it was like windshield bugs. That was a thing back then. And it was just, but now, where are the windshield bugs? You can drive a long ways, and not get that many insects on your windshield. There was a joke from the 70s, I think, that goes along the lines of, how do you tell if a motorcyclist is happy? And the answer is because of the bugs in his teeth. And the idea that he smiles, he's going to accumulate bugs, just like you see in the front panels of all the cars. That doesn't happen anymore. People today wouldn't even understand the joke. So insects are declining. Everything is declining, and this is what pollinates our food. So obviously, we're all interrelated. We have to worry about ourselves at some point as well. And in my book, I talk about Biosphere 2. You may have heard about that. It was many decades ago that this philanthropist got this idea of designing an ecosphere, several acres that would be totally enclosed and shut off from the rest of the world. It was I think it was near Tucson, Arizona. And they said, we're going to put some humans in there. We're going to put in 8 humans in there, and plus, various wild animals, plus, birds and whatnot, and see if we can live a self-sustained life. And the idea would be that eventually, for example, if you could get such a container to work over the long haul, you could go to Mars, and you could just build your little container on Mars, and everybody would live in their sort of self-sufficient dome there, in which you could grow all the food, whatever that you needed. Well, it worked sort of, but it was a hard road to hoe. Most of the pollinators went extinct. The place was overrun with cockroaches. There was one kind of ant that was inadvertently introduced, and it wiped out all the other ants. They were able to feed themselves, but it took quite a bit of work. They were always sort of hungry. So it's not the kind of thing that was really totally successful at all. It was very much of a survival kind of existence. That's the kind of world that we're creating right now in Biosphere 1, in our biosphere. So I think we have some things to worry about. I think biodiversity matters, and that, yes, we're headed towards a sixth great extinction. I don't know if we're there yet. Obviously, there's some obvious ways we could deal with it, like get rid of livestock agriculture, for heaven's sake. That takes up 2/3 of our agricultural land. Right there is livestock agriculture. And if you return that to wilderness, if we didn't have livestock, you could return that to wilderness. There would be plenty of area left for wild animals to survive, perhaps even to start to increase.